So I think this is a record, all four participants bespectacled.
I thought you were going to say something else. I thought you were going to say incompetent at Zoom.
No, I didn't sort it out, did I? I can't criticise you if I couldn't sort it out.
Right, well, let's just do it. And even if nothing works, then at least we can make the draw and we can have a catch up. I've missed you all.
Will you press record?
Yep.
Order! Send more house to save the house! Come on, the house!
Have you got that? Has it said it at the top?
You know where it's recording to, though?
How do you? Maybe if I get my Walkman out, play and record. Welcome everyone to Lowerhouse Cricket Club podcast, where we've not got Joe Martin, so we are struggling technically. Thankfully, we've got Dooch on, who's always a ray of sunshine, and we've got Gary on after his 40th, 50th, after his birthday. How did your birthday celebrations go, Gaz?
Really good, Jez. 50 plus VAT, 50 plus VAT, mate. Yeah, it was really good. Thanks.
That sounds good. Yeah, it was good to see the girls looking after you and some lovely photos and everything. So you had a nice weekend and a good catch up with everyone.
Yeah, we went best working away, so we went and stayed with her for a bit, and then had a bit of a reunion for family when we got back home. So yeah, it dragged it out a bit and got spoiled rotten. So
good, and so you should. Dude, how's this winter going for you? Weather's raining. Not much golf, will you?
Yeah, played a bit. Yeah, played a bit. I'm fed up now, winter. I like a break from cricket season, as I said before, but I'm bored now. It's crap in it when it's dark in the morning and at night. I'm ready for cricket season to start again.
Oh, it's a bit of a trek, isn't it now?
Be indoor next time, Thompson Centre, first week in Jan, won't it?
Sunday night, yeah.
Yeah, do you still do that? About 6 pints afterwards.
No, they don't do that now. They have a shorter period, but more. They have like 3 or 4 2-hour sessions in February, starting in February. So
Right.
It's struggle though. There's no Thompson Centre, is there anymore? I'm showing me. It's how long I haven't been around down there.
yeah, car park now. They could do it on car park. What used to be at Thompson Centre.
Yeah, I'll move to St Peter's. But we've had a good discussion this week of getting a few of us together just to talk through how it's going towards the end of the year, how the club's gone on through winter, how it will manage through winter. So it's worth just introducing our guests. We've got Matthew Stansfield on, the president, the chairman, the everything at Cricket Club, and he managed to keep everything afloat. How's it going, Stanley?
All good, Jez, thank you. Nice to be here, as always, eventually.
That's good. Yeah, it took us over 20 minutes to actually get on, and I'm not sure it'll ever get published, this, but we'll see.
Are you going cannabis behind you, Jez? What's that?
Right. It's from other bedrooms that Lisa's got. We haven't done some work done, so there's all sorts of... There's cannabis plants, there's sweets in the background, everything.
All sorts going on there, isn't there?
Yeah, there is. It's really busy. It's a busy old office. But yeah, all good at this end, Stanley. So let's just have a little... We've got 2 draws to do tonight. We want to talk about how the winter has gone for the Lancashire League. There seems to be an extraordinary lot of transfers, which I'm not sure it is different, or I'm not sure it is any different, but it'd be good to get Gary's views on that, and then also Joe and Stanley's more recent views. So like I said, 2 draws, but I think before we go into any of that, Matt Stanley has volunteered to come on just to talk about maybe the financial side and the progress of the club and how things have gone. You know, we won the league. It was a fantastic season. You know, we could say record points when you work it out compared with other seasons with how the points were distributed. What's your thoughts, Stanley, towards the end of the season, how it finished, and then how the club is managing up towards Christmas financially and socially and everything else? How's it going?
Yeah, very good. I think the cricket season, I'll be honest, I think we've been threatening that for a couple of years. We've had a couple of sort of iffy starts to seasons. I think we'd have come very close the previous year if Dan had been with us a bit earlier than. I know he was here for the start of the season, but it was all a bit rushed and a bit sort of chaotic in the lead up to that. But I think once Dan stamped his authority on things with Ben and Paul, it started to take shape last season. And I think, like I say, we've been threatening to do what we did last season for quite a while. So it's always good to win it. It's always good to win it like we did in emphatic fashion, where there can be absolutely no argument or doubt. It's not as though there's been an odd no result here that's gone our way. We've literally walked it in the end, which is great to see. We've just got to now keep that momentum going into next season and see if we can pick up a few more pots.
Yeah, and so whilst we're on the cricket, great news. It's out there in the open that Dan has been appointed as second 11 coach at Lancashire. That's good news for him. Have you spoken to him about it? He's obviously over the moon. How's that gone down with him and his family?
Yeah, it's great news for him. There's actually a little bit more to the role than what probably meets the eye on the announcement. So the second 11 element of his role kicks in more sort of when you'd expect it to, sort of pre-season, the main pre-season and in the season. But during the winter, he's doing a lot of work with the first team as well. So Steve Croft's obviously been appointed as the head coach at Lancashire, hasn't he? Yeah. And Chilton, I think Mark Chilton's role as director of cricket, something like that, isn't it? So they've both taken a shine to Dan. He's obviously made a fantastic impression. The second team role, he was pretty much doing that last season to some extent. So he's doing it on a bit more of a freelance basis, working with Carl Cricken there. But as they've done the overall of the coaching team, he's been stepped into that position as a sort of full-time role, which is fantastic for him.
It is, and it will obviously enhance his experiences. But I do wonder, it's a little bit of a, when we spoke to him and his outlook on cricket, he's got that mentality of it's there to be enjoyed and no pressure, and play to be happy and play the game right. And if you win, great. If you don't, it's not the end of the world. And I hope he can get that through to some of the junior players at Lancs, if not the senior players, because my experience over the last 2 or 3 years, there's not been many happy cricketers there. Whether it's because of the international players being away or at franchise cricket, I know it's a long way off. But do you know if he's thought about that, Stanley, or what do you think about that observation?
Yeah, I think there's an element of that as to why he's been brought in. I think they've seen him operating last year. There's no getting away from the fact he's an infectious character when you're talking to him and you're around him. And I think that I suspect that Lancashire have seen an element of that, seen the way he is with the guys in the second team and everything. Listened to his outlook and thought maybe he can bring something different. Like I say, in the summer he's going to be predominantly second team, but this stage now he's heavily involved with the sort of first team preparation as well as part of his role, which is great.
And I wonder if anyone's listened to his podcast of how infectious he was there when he was speaking to us of the younger players, and it's clearly borne some fruit. I know I'm saying that tongue in cheek, but that can only help. In your experience, Stanley, Cracky, I've had a pint with him, I've chatted with him. Is he like that 100%, so positive and so wanting to help and improve people?
Yeah, that's just his makeup. Right from the first time that we spoke to him about coming over as professional. So it was one of those, I think we've discussed this before on the podcast, but it was a little bit last minute. It was a bolt out of the blue. I was walking up the drive at the club going into the meeting, and we got the message to say that Dan was interested. And we sat down and we're like, Dan Self-Pietro, it's years ago since he played in this league. And then, but as soon as you speak to him, as soon as I spoke to him then and exchanged messages, and I know Ben was the same, you just get that feel that, yeah, actually this could be a really good fit for us. At that point, you're sort of hoping that personality and that infectiousness, he's still got it as a player, and I think he's shown us all that he's more than got it as a player as well. So yeah, it's been a fantastic appointment. I think it's pushed our club and our playing style in a completely different way as well. The way we play the game, the way we attack the games, it's a joy to watch. And I think he's basically been the focal point and the catalyst for all of that.
Yeah, and you're right, 100% right what you say about the way he manages the game. manages the team and manages training. But Duke, I'll just come to you really as being you oversee the cricketing side of it, albeit just give your views and don't press yourself on anyone, or certainly around selection. His form did drop. I know he got an injury and he did. He did get maybe a drop in the scores, but because we were so strong elsewhere, we seem to be able to manage that. I think middle towards the second half of the season. Have you any views on that? Do you think that his form could take a significant part of him being the professional for the club, and you can't just rely on his attitude?
No, I don't agree with that. I think what when you sign in a professional for a league club, what's the aim? What is what do you want to get out of that professional? Are you interested in ultimately, are you interested in how many wickets he takes, how many runs he scores, or are you interested in how the team do? What would be the ultimate goal? It'd be how be the team winning the league, wouldn't it?
100%
Yeah,
as far as we all go. But again, I'm just sitting here giving an
yeah.
alternative view that, and again, it's going back to the olden days where you had a professional who was outstanding and he would do certain things in the game which would change a game. But you're right, potentially that club may maybe not win the league.
Yeah, I think what we're trying to say is you've got to look at it. You've got to look at the appointment in the round, haven't you? In a holistic way. I hate that phrase, but I think it applies here. You've got to look at are you getting value for the money that you've spent all round, not just what he does at 1 o'clock or in the second half or whatever it is. Is he doing what you want him to do as a club professional? And what is the measure of that? And if we're winning the league by 60 points, I don't think it matters what his stats are. And the other thing I want to say is he's very, very selfless. We've all played with professionals in the past who are very, very concerned with how their numbers look on paper. I bet you wouldn't even be able to tell you how many runs and wickets he got in the last 2 years because he's not interested. That's not what drives him. It's about what's going on in the club in the wider, I'd say, and that's how it certainly comes across to me. And if I was asked to look at his stats from the last 2 years and give a view on that, I'd say I'm not really interested. It's look how the team are doing and look how they're playing and look at the results, and that's the measure for me.
The thing is as well, I think just on his season last year, I think and a lot of this was kept not quiet for a reason, but it just wasn't sort of public knowledge. But he obviously had the injury. He also had pneumonia as well amidst all of that. And I think he sort of had a bit of a slow start to the season as a result. He was ailing right the way through, but kept going at it as he does because that's his character. And I tend to agree with Joe that he's not the kind of guy that will dwell on numbers and statistics. But one thing I will say is that when he's involved in the game, it moves at a million miles an hour. There's either wickets falling, there's runs scoring. I find it fascinating. It's a bit like when you watch Ben Stokes with England. As soon as he puts that ball in his hand or he's got that bat in his hand, you sort of know that something's going to happen that's going to have an impact on that game. And to some extent, you're surprised when it doesn't. And I've found that with Dan, it's a bit like that. He comes on and he'll take 2-3 wickets in an over. He's hitting boundaries. It's like the game just accelerates beyond belief when he's involved. And I think he's a joy to watch the way he just plays and the way he handles the game. And I think it's a lesson to a lot of us that to be that way. And I think everyone in the team's benefited from that sort of. It's not a lack of care, sort of, because he cares beyond belief. But I think it's that it's not the end of the world if things go wrong. And one thing that he's massive on is it doesn't really matter how it looks. So we talk about England and certain players and things like that, and I think Dan's a big one for. It might look shit when you're out doing a certain thing, but does it really matter? If ultimately at the end of the game we go in and we've won, who cares?
Yeah, 100%, Stanley. And I also, I was being a bit mischievous throwing that out there, but it's a good discussion point. And we've also missed the way he is with the juniors, with the practice, with the actual behind the club scene, which is completely, so valuable. It's untrue, Gary. It goes back to when we might have played, whether it was with Ryan, Corey, Jackson, or any people like that. What Dooch is saying is, yeah, they might have score 160 and, not score a run for a few weeks or get 500s on the trot. One pro got for us, but we're still nowhere near winning the league. It's so different from those days. And I don't think it's just Lowerhouse, but other clubs as well. What's your views on it, Gary? And, how would you, should we go back to having big pros that win the odd game, but you don't really win the league, but you have a fantastic, entertaining game, or are we happy the way it is now?
There's 2 points here. I agree with Dooch, everything we said there, and I think we've always been, certainly to my knowledge, looking for professionals who can give a lot to a legacy from a continuation point of view, not from a personal performance point of view. It's all great because it makes a good podcast in 10 years' time. You remember that time somebody smashed 180 off 30 balls. Yeah, great.
Yeah.
But if that's the only game he won all season, and then the players haven't learned anything from it for the next 10 years, they're still at the club trying to grind out, 300 or 400 runs a season, then what is there a legacy there? So I think we've always had that mentality because of just the history of our club and not having that luxury to be able to splash the cash. So it's interesting now, and at that time you could. I make that statement because you look at the likes of Haslingden back in the day and Bacup and Rishton, people like that who made marquee signings. Nelson, they had a strength in depth. They had quality first team players who could win 3 or 4 games each themselves a year. Win 12, 15 games almost without, I wouldn't say without a professional, that's wrong, but without, sort of a professional scoring 1,200 runs or taking 120 wickets. And where are they now? So it doesn't pay off. You've got to have that strategy, I think, that does. If you can get in, I won't say name, but if you can get somebody who looks exciting, who draws the crowds in, who is an entertainer, everything else, fantastic. But I think that's the cherry on top of the cake. I think fundamentally, going for somebody of substance, somebody who brings the right qualities and ethos and everything else around the club, who you don't see for those 8 hours on a Saturday afternoon. Then that's worth the weight in gold over the performances, in my view. And it'd be interesting to see, putting it standing on the spot, that if we ever got into that position where we felt we had 10, 12, 15 top quality amateurs, and we could go out for somebody who maybe you'd think would guarantee some silverware or some fantastic performances, to draw would we do it? It's an interesting debate.
I think it is an interesting one because I think we've, and I'm sure Dan would be the first to sort of admit this, and to a lesser extent, Francois might be someone who would admit this as well. But if you look at some of the players we've had over recent years, we've had some stellar cricketers as professionals and lads with first class pedigree and quality that you wouldn't believe, who've gone on to play international cricket and everything else. But the 2 guys that I mentioned there, Frankie and Dan, you would probably class at the lower end of the first class spectrum, but as an impact on our club, been absolutely off the scale in comparison to the lads who you look at and you see as you sort of, like I said, marquee first class signings. And it's something that I can't remember if we've discussed this particular point on the podcast previously, but it's something I know that I've spoken to quite a few people about. That I do think with a pro game, you can overthink it a little bit, and you look at things like, for example, he's got fantastic first class stats, is this, that, and the other, and yeah, he's going to go on and play international cricket and all these kind of things. And to be honest with you, those 2 players I've mentioned, Dan sort of fell into our lap last minute, which is fantastic. You do all the planning, you do everything that you think. We sit and watch videos. Myself, Joe, and Ben are exchanging messages about games that are going on in distant parts of the world. And then you get let down, and you find a guy that just can turn up and do the business, and he's fantastic. And Frankie was similar. Frankie, whilst we had a choice of a couple of pros around the time of Frankie, we did have a couple of choices with Dan. Don't get me wrong, but around the time of Frankie, we were skint. and we needed to get somebody that we could get in at budget that we thought might be able to do a job. And look how that turned out. And then as you sort of move up the levels, as a club, we were always shopping in bargain basement. We are probably in the position where we can go and spend more on the pro, and we can go and see a pro that's performed fantastically in another league and pay them more than what clubs in that league would be able to. But I don't necessarily think you need to do it, if I'm being honest.
No, and
There's
again,
no guarantee, is there? There's certainly no guarantee of success. But and you're right, we've poured over averages and like you say, video of pros, and it hasn't always worked, has it? Let's be honest.
No.
And then you talk about two lads there, and I agree with you completely. Not much first class pedigree between them, and they've been the two most successful pros we've ever had as a club.
yeah, and you can't, this last 2 or 3 years, the amateurs have been as strong as any amateurs. But, with Frankie's, they weren't necessarily, that wasn't the case. Frankie was, as Matt, it's on record hundreds of times of how much I rate Frankie and what he's done for the club. So it is, and it's not just luck as well, Stan. You've got to think of the research you do, the liaison you do with the senior players, and that's a little bit, coming on to the legacy of what Ren has left. He was into those stats and mentoring you into, you need to work at things. They don't just get given to you on a lap. So it's a really interesting topic, and I'm glad, we've probably had 15, 20 minutes there. And earlier we didn't know what we were going to talk about. So no, it's really interesting, that, lads. Really
It's a shame no one's going to hear it.
Say again.
It's a shame nobody will hear it.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, we'll have to reminisce or set me my phone recording it. We were chatting about just on our WhatsApp group of what we talk about in this podcast, because we've got these draws to do. Let me just throw it out there. There's a lot of movement or perceived movement by amateurs around the league this year. I'm being told there's a lot more than there's been before, where players are leaving clubs to go elsewhere outside the league or moving within the league from clubs, whether it's first or second divisions. I'll just throw it out there and I'll come to you one by one. And I'm not personally talk about the players' names, mainly one, because I can't remember them, and two, I don't think it really matters unless we can specifically come up with a reason. We're quite lucky we've got a settled squad, which is a big squad now when you include the second team who've been promoted. But Darwin are losing some significant players. Church, second division, we haven't played against them for a while, but apparently they're losing some top hitters. Aslington have lost a captain. He's moving, 4 or 5 miles away. I'm led to believe Littleborough are losing probably the best batter. He's playing elsewhere. I think that's outside the league.
And the best bowler.
Yeah, and the best bowler as well. Dooch, you do a quietly way, a bit of work behind the scenes and looking at the opposition during the season. Is this unusual, what's happening? Because I have a comeback with that. And what are your thoughts around why it's happening, whether it's unusual or it's normal?
I think some of it's unusual. I mean, you can't look at the Darwin scenario and think that looks normal. That there looks to be something that's gone sadly wrong there. I mean, they just spent a load of money on the training facility at the ground and lost 3 of the best players.
A fantastic setup, haven't they, around the club?
Yeah. Well, the bar's superb. Yeah, I mean the players don't rate the pitch particularly, but anything away from the pitch, the club looks fantastic. And like you said, they've lost 3 confirmed, and there's rumours that there's a couple more going as well. So that looks unusual to me. A couple of the others you mentioned, Church, again, looks like there's been some kind of falling out there because they've lost 3 players who are going out of the league, which is bad. But the one that really struck me was, I know you said you didn't want to do individuals, but Sam Holt, who's been there since he was a kid, has gone to play at Nelson.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, that just looks horrendous. If Church is struggling as a club and a kid, a lad like Sam, who's not much younger than me, he's a bit younger than me, but he's been there a long time and he's jumping ship to go and play for another club in the same division, that looks bad to me, does that? And then obviously Griffin Aslington to Ramsbottom, Rami look like they're putting together a very useful squad, and maybe Griffin has fancied a shot at some silverware, and he don't think he's going to get that at Aslington. So I can see that. I can see the logic there. But some of the others, like I say, something looks like it's gone wrong at some of them clubs to me.
There's been a few captain changes as well, aren't there? I think sometimes that triggers some of these things, isn't it? If people don't like the captain or the person who's been appointed as captain, it can trigger
How
these
bad
things.
would it have to be though? How bad
Yeah,
would that have to
no,
be?
yeah, it's a fair point. I don't necessarily unusual. Yes, it probably is a little bit unusual, but I think it's also a bit of it's the modern way, isn't it? I think this is more how I expect it to be in future than what it's been in the past. I just think that everything's a bit more transient these days, isn't it? And I think people moving clubs will become more of a thing. I hope that the league retain the rules to try and sort of control that as best they can. I appreciate it's difficult, but I think things like the 2 year rule and stuff like that are sensible, because what you don't want it to be is like amateur football, or sort of semi-pro amateur football, where people just move around all over the place, don't they? And a manager
Stanley,
moves from
what's the
one club to
2 year?
another.
Just remind me, what's the 2 year rule?
You can't move if you've moved to a Lancashire League club. You can't move to another Lancashire League club within 2 years.
Okay.
So something along those lines. Anyway, it's basically to try and stop club hopping.
Yeah,
It used to be 3 years, but they've reduced it to 2. But I think 2 is about fair, because you can easily move clubs and make a mistake. And I know that people in the past have sort of ended up moving clubs, realising it wasn't what they thought it was going to be, and ended up playing in the Rib League or whatever. And we don't really want that, do we? So I think 2 years is probably about right for that.
It really
I
is.
thought, sorry, Jez, I thought the movement of players, and I thought that I expected it to become more prevalent, but I thought it would be more lads in the second division who thought that they could be playing in first division clubs and would be moving in that direction. I thought that's what we would see more of.
I think we've seen a bit of that, though, haven't we?
Yeah, we have, but not this time, or not yet anyway.
No.
But mate, obviously there's plenty of time to go yet. It's not even Christmas, and those ones that we went through there were the ones that I've seen confirmation for. I have heard a few little whispers of other things, but obviously it would be wrong to talk about them yet, because they're not confirmed. But there are a couple of other clubs in our division who, if rumours are to be believed, are losing players, out of the league as well.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Yeah, and it's difficult. I don't want to get into real heavy debates about why it happened, or whether it's a financial thing, or whether it's because of the state of the league. Because there is no two ways about it. No one's going to convince me that the Lancashire League is not strong. It is a very, very strong league. Because it's not an open league, is that causing an issue for some clubs? And you've just alluded to it there, Stanley, with only moving. You can't move until 2 seasons have passed. I personally wouldn't want it to be coming to the Open League. And if people are leaving to get, obviously out of the league because they're going to get paid, whether it's 20 quid or 200 quid, then that's fine. And Gary, I'll come to you with this. I've been, associating with quite a few people who are almost doom and gloom about the league because we're losing these decent quality players. There's quite a few going to Borough. There's some going over to the Liverpool comp from various clubs, and they're all been announced. But that happened when we played. I was trying to explain, just our club. So you've got, the other 14 clubs that were there at the time. We lost Johnny Hartley, we lost Stephen G, we lost Graham Bushell to go pro in the Riversdale League at that time. And that happens, and they'll come back, or they'll settle in these, different clubs. So I don't think it changes much. I
don't think an open league solves it either, Jess, if I'm being honest.
No,
I think an open league, if anything, will make it worse, because I think you'll have players come and go left, right, and centre. And I don't think an open league. I think for us as a club, something like an open league would be a bit of a disaster, because we put an awful lot of time, effort, and finance into building players and investing in the coaching and everything else. And if it became an open league, we'd have a decision to make, wouldn't we? Where's our money best spent? Is it best spent trying to create our own players for someone to come along and nick them for a few quid a few years down the line? Or are we best just joining the rat race and bidding for players each winter to try and bring them into the club? So I think, but I certainly don't think an open league would solve the problem of players moving out of the league. Because I think, if anything, it'd just make it worse.
Yeah, or moving within the league.
Yeah.
I do. I agree. But, you remember those days, Gary. You can, me and you were never really involved in in movement or trying to stop or encourage people to come into Lowerhouse when we were the captain. What's your views on it? Because there is some strong views. There's some clubs that are strongly upset about movement at the moment within the league.
Yeah, and I think for quite a while I was still very old school around the emotional days of, it was like the community. You had to live or work within like 5 miles of the ground for at one point, didn't you? Something as draconian as that at one point, and to think that we could go back to that type of regime, I think is a bit folly. So I think we've got to accept that to open to where we merged with or we accepted clubs from Central Lancs and Rib League and the 2 division. This ultimately, where you've got such a vast area that you're covering now teams in that league to try and it was pointless, the sort of 5 mile rule or anything like that. So you're going to get the movement. I think controlling it, the 2 year thing, and maybe could you put a limit on the number of inter-club signings within the league within a year or anything like that? I don't know. But rather than it being completely open, I think that's probably is a recipe for disaster. I mean, there were a couple, you said we didn't, there were 2 or 3 seasons where we tried to get odd individuals. I mean, Paul Webb came playing, Mark Wharton came playing, John Bushell played for a season. There were a couple of other people who probably don't need to mention who we talked to who were relatively close to come in, but for the facilities, etc. And that was to serve an ends to a mean. That was almost for numbers, not for actually. Yeah, they were good players, but we were just looking to still get 2 teams out on a weekend at that point. So as much as anything. It's a fine line, isn't it, that clubs are going to tread between attracting players, paying players, however it's dressed up. I think it's something that's I think all clubs have got a responsibility to make sure that the integrity of the league and the integrity of the essence of the clubs in the league, I think, is maintained. So that it's not just a conveyor belt of faceless, nameless, people who we won't forget, who we won't remember. Sorry, within 2 weeks of the next season starting.
Yeah, and it does give you this.
Desperately don't want to come across like we're dead against signing players, because that'd be daft, wouldn't it? Because we, even when I played, we had players who we signed, and even in the current squad we've got, a 3 I can think off the top of my head who we signed. So we're not saying that we're, Lowerhouse high and mighty. We don't sign players and we're against it. That's not what we're saying at all. I think it's the wholesale changes and the frequency of moves. Somebody like me who's picking teams, I won't want to be picking from lads who've only been there for a year and they might not be there the following year. That would make life very, very difficult.
Yeah.
I do like these suggestions. I know I do like these suggestions around this points-based system and things like that. I think there's potentially merit in that, where you get so many points for an homegrown player in your match day team. I think there's merit in that. I think it needs a lot of thought and a lot of attention, but it's something that I'd be happy and keen to explore further.
Yeah, that would get heavy, and it would take a lot of discussion trying to explain what that's about, and I don't think we can do that now. And especially
it's too early in its build, Jez, for us to discuss it, because we don't really know what the ins and outs of it are yet, do we?
How will that affect Duckworth Lewis against Burnley, Stanley?
Douglas Lewis, you mean?
Yeah.
Douglas Lewis. Listen, we're going to
PTSD over that.
Because we've no Joe Martin on, this is going to end in the next minute. So we're going to have to dial out and dial in, because we've not even got close to the most important bit, the guess the winner. So, lads, please dial back in. Do I need to send anything else out, Gary, or can you just jump back on?
Same meeting, I think, Jez.
Thank you. Right, see you in 30 seconds.
All right.
Tin pot.
That's all, folks.